Hello everyone, this is part 10 of What If Naruto Joined the Teen Ants, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto clenched Raven's hand tightly. He felt numb to the ground he was walking on, barely feeling the treading of his own feet. Tsunade's words rang in his mind over and over again. Banished. He was banished. This knowledge was painful to him. He had never intended to return, but the knowledge he wasn't even allowed to plague heavily in his heart. Raven gripped his arm, burying her head into his shoulder as they walked, pressing her body against his side. He sighs, holding her close. He was with the girl he loved, and that was what mattered most. He breathed in the scent of her hair. It always smelled so strange to him, like cinnamon. He smiled softly, kissed the top of her head. He pressed a hand to her face, stroking it lightly as they walked. He lifted her chin up and pressed his lips to hers gently. They merged into each other's mouths, smiling lightly at the feel of being so close. Crack! Naruto hit his head on a low branch. Oh! He stepped back, clutching his head. Raven looked at him and pressed her hands to her mouth. He gazed at her curiously, his head throbbing. Raven broke out into a fit of laughter, her giggles ringing out like music to his ears. He smiled despite the pain, reaching down and taking a handful of leaves, he threw it at her. Shut it. He said playfully. Raven grinned at him, twitching her finger lightly. Suddenly a massive wave of leaves flew from the ground into his face. He brushed them away, looking playfully annoyed. He dived on her, pushing her to the ground. Together they wrestled, shoving leaves in each other's faces and rolling in the dirt, laughing loudly. Hey! They stopped, turning and looking over. There stood Jinx, seemingly angry, her gaze like daggers directed at the both of them. In case you hadn't noticed, we have no food, no new clothes, no nothing but a dumb forest in a dumb place. Naruto sighed, standing up. Okay, he began. I want to go home. He heard Raven take in a slight intake of breath a little faster than usual. I want us to get back to An Tower as soon as possible. He heard a slight sigh of relief making him smile. We better get started on what I came here to do. What's that? Jinx asked, her voice tinted with curiosity. I can't, in good conscience, leave this world and join yours without making sure Konoha is safe. He explained. I have to eliminate the main threats. That means I need to find Pain. Now Pain has many however, he should have a source. If I destroy that source body, the others should I hope. Then there's Madara Uchiha. Who are they? Raven asked him, hugging his arms softly. Pain is the leader of the Akatsuki, and Madara helps him. Out of everyone, they're the biggest threat. My friends can handle anyone else, but these two need to go. He looked thoughtful, his gaze drifting into the distance as his mind ran with knowledge and information he had collected over the years. He had to find a way to track them down, a way to sense and track their chakra energy. Sadly, there was only one way to do that. He needed Hinata and the Byakugan. We have to go back, he said resolutely. What? Jinx said, her face a mixture of shock and confusion. We have to. We need to find. He stopped. Naruto's body became tensed. Something was here. Move. He jumped to the side as an array of kunais struck the ground where he had been standing, missing him by mere inches. He rolled on the ground, withdrawing the tishima from its sheath on his back. Using the flame-shaped sword he intercepted the kunais, deflecting them into the trees. Raven protected herself with a shadow force field. The black velvet-like power surrounded her body in a dome shape. Their attackers jumped down from the trees. Naruto stared in disbelief. Stylized cat-like masks stared back at him, but they were different, something about them wasn't right. They dressed like Anbu, but Naruto had a feeling they worked for someone else. They charged. Raven dived and rolled to the side when one of the attackers brought out a blade and at her. Using her powers she wrenched it from him and flung it into a tree. She blasted him back into a wall. Naruto dodged under a well-placed kick, sweeping at his attacker's leg, knocking him to the ground. Spinning, Naruto delivered an arc heel strike to his opponent's stomach, feeling his attacker's body convulse in pain. He flipped up, Using the tishima to block a second attack's blade, he struck out with his own. His opponent attempted to block Naruto's sword, but the opponent's own blade was inevitable in half by the tishima's unnaturally sharp edge. Naruto felt his blade hit, B sprayed from his opponent as a deep G was into his C. The man fell back shouting in pain. He collapsed on the floor, his body shaking uncontrollable. Naruto turned to face any other attacker that would challenge him, but his gaze was met with nothing. There were none of them in sight. Naruto sheathed his tishima, perspiration laden on his forehead. He turned round and saw Raven turning to meet his gaze. "You okay, Rachel?" he asked, walking up to her and holding her close. "Yeah, I'm fine." She smiled at him. Naruto smiled back. It was rather amazing at how much she had changed, but when he thought about it clearly, maybe she hadn't changed at all. Maybe this was the real Raven. That everything else was a mask to control her emotions. He had allowed her to feel, so the mask had dropped. He was thankful that he was able to give her this chance to feel as he believed she should. Leaning in, he kissed her softly, breaking it gently and smiling again. He noticed it. The quietness. Something was missing. And that something was Jinx. Her entire body was rigid due to the tight ropes. She couldn't see due to the blindfold. And the sounds she heard were no help in gauging her whereabouts. Jinx struggled against the binds that held her, twisting this way and that. She was roughly pushed into an uncomfortable chair, the binds were seeming wrapped around the back of it. Then the blindfold was removed. She squinted, expecting light to flood her sight, but instead she still saw darkness. Her eyes adjusted to the gloom of the room she was in. She saw a figure beside her, a shape. He moved in front of her and walked away. A door opened and light flooded into the room. Jinx took a brief glance around the area. The floors were a traditional mahogany wood and the walls seemed to be naught but oak. The room itself was seemingly bare except for some support beams along the side of the walls. The door closed and she was once again plunged into darkness. She would have yelled out for help, but a gag had been placed over her mouth. The sound of voices reached her ears, incoherent and muffled, but voices nonetheless. She strained her ears to listen, trying to pick up anything she could use. The voices stopped and the sound of footsteps started. The door opened again and she squinted in the light. A man stood in the doorway. She was unable to make out any distinctive details as he was silhouetted. He walked into the room and stopped. He turned around seemingly in anger. "You got the wrong one." His voice showed no emotion but harbored a strength his posture didn't show. "Untie her and get rid of her. Didn't let her be a witness." Jinx understood he meant to kill her. She struggled relentlessly. The man that had tied her to the chair came up and untied her. In the split second she had mobility, she flicked her fingers. A purple bolt shredded through the rope. She flipped and drove a kick into the side of the man's head, spinning round and sending a flurry of bolts in the direction of the other man. But he wasn't there. A sharp blow struck her shoulder and a pain struck her arm. Looking, she saw a searing needle stuck into her skin. She felt woozy and collapsed onto the floor. The world around her span. She rolled over and looked up. The light shone on the man's face. Bandages covered one half of it and over his head. A brown gown-like attire donned his body. Bandages seemed to be covered everywhere. Only one arm was shown. "Thank you for showing me what you can do. Now I can use you." He said this in a way that you would expect someone to smile, but he wore no smile. In fact, he seemingly had no emotions. "You're going to make an excellent subject for breeding that unique and possible new bloodline of yours." Jinx could feel herself slipping into unconsciousness. "Who are you?" she asked as best she could, her voice quiet and barely audible. But the man seemingly heard. "Me. I see no harm in telling you. I am Danzo. And you are mine." Darkness took her. Pain gripped him, the S on his S profusely, and he could feel himself slipping away. The ground beneath him was hard and coarse, stones dug into his back and the sounds of birds and swaying trees seemingly thundered in his ears. Suddenly, a new thrash of pain drove through him, causing him to groan loudly. He looked up into the angry blue eyes of a blonde-haired youth. Naruto couldn't believe that Jinx had been taken. He looked around, his eyes fell upon one of the remaining attackers. The others in the area were but this one was breathing. He reached down and gripped his clothes, wrenching him up. The man gasped and groaned in agony. B dripped onto Naruto's armor. He paid it no heed, glaring angrily at the man. Naruto reached forward and gripped the mask, Wrenching it off, he stared into the other boy's eyes. It was the attacker from before, the long-hair Anbu youth that had attacked him in the forest. Where have they taken her? He shouted angrily. The man tried to answer, but B clogged his tea and all he did was sputter. "WHO do you work for?" Naruto demanded. The man once again tried to answer, but his body convulsed in pain and suddenly went limp in Naruto's arms. He was S. Naruto shouted and threw the man back onto the floor. Standing up, he began pacing angrily, racking his brain for some kind of answer to who might have taken Jinx. He had to think. Who would do this? Why would they do this? Who had the motive? No, these were the wrong questions, he realized. He shouldn't ask who or why, he should ask how. Who had the resources for their own Anbu regiment? Who was the only person with his own Anbu regiment that answered only to him? The answer was obvious. Danzo. Naruto's voice was laden with anger. He withdrew the Tishima and in a single swipe of anger he swung his blade through a tree bark. He breathed heavily, the sound of creaking reaching his ears. The tree cracked and crumpled, falling and hitting the ground with a loud bang. Raven watched Naruto as he took out his anger. She felt sorry for him. Though she had never liked Jinx and had recently become to hate her for her obvious infatuation with her boyfriend, she didn't want the girl to be harmed. She wanted to help Naruto find her, but she didn't know how. Naruto. Her lover turned and looked at her, his angry eyes softened as they gazed at her face. "Let me help you. I may be able to track her." She smiled softly. Closing her eyes, Raven drew her legs up, her body floating cross-legged in the air. She opened her eyes rapidly. Azurath Metrian Zinthos. Naruto watched as Raven floated in the air, her eyes opened sharply and she called her chant. Naruto found himself staring into pools of blackness. A shiver of fear traveled down his spine as he gazed into Raven's pupils. They were not the color of black, but seemingly the embodiment of darkness. The blonde-haired youth found himself rather afraid of Raven's power. Raven's mind stretched out, scanning wide and long, energy surrounded her sight, coils and coils of it in every person, more than she would usually expect. She sensed Naruto's and was taken aback by what she saw. His body emanated a raw power unlike anything she had felt. A well was within him, a hole much like a black hole, and infinite space like a diamond. Within it she saw energy, an infinite amount of power and energy. This must be Kyuubi. She pulled her gaze away from her lover, sending her mind forth, the energy of animals cropped up. She found another well of power, massive compared to the others around it, but nothing like Naruto's. Once again it was sealed within a person. She guessed that whoever it is, they also contained a tailed demon. Wells of power were all around her vision. She was finding it difficult to keep up her search. She found those with coils of power centered on their eyes. She found several of one certain kind and several of another. Including a feeling that some of these were not meant to be there, like they had not been born with this energy, merely acquired it. She kept searching, focusing as best she could. She suddenly felt a hand on her shoulder. Sudden clarity overcame her. Her mind was calm and peaceful. She willed herself to find Jinx and instantly, there she was. Raven forced herself to meld with Jinx's power, trying to see through her eyes. She saw a room, and a man. Something happened. Jinx began to attack, but the man, Jinx hadn't noticed, but Raven sensed the man's power. It was strong. It was very strong. This man was not what he seemed. The man hit Jinx, and through Jinx's eyes, Raven saw the syringe in Jinx's arm. Jinx collapsed. Raven felt the pink-haired girl's mind becoming like cotton, fluffed up and incoherent. Raven forced more of herself into Jinx. Using Jinx, she forced the pink-haired girl to ask, "Who are you?" The answer was incoherent, but she caught the sound of a name. Dan something. Raven snapped back to the present. Her body collapsed into Naruto's arms, her mind calm and her cloak white. She's somewhere inside Konoha. From what I can tell, they might be underground, in some kind of catacombs. She's being held hostage for something, by a guy. I didn't get his name, but it began with. It's Danzo. Naruto interjected. Raven was taken aback. He's the only one with his own force of Anbu. He's the only one that could have done this. He explained, looking at her sternly. Can you take me to them? Raven smiled. She stepped forward and held out her hand. Azurath Metrian Zinthos. Her power erupted in front of her. Black tentacles reached from her back and tore open a circle of darkness before her. A portal. Naruto smiled. Let's go and get Jinx back, Raven said with a smile. Naruto and Raven walked into the portal. Darkness surrounded and compressed Naruto, his head swam and his body contorted and churned, yet surprisingly, it was not painful. Naruto and Raven stepped out of the other side. A room full of Anbu awaited them. Naruto stopped, all eyes turned to him and Raven. Slowly and surely Naruto reached behind his back, gripping hold of the Tishima's handle. He withdrew it, a light ringing sound through the air as the blade's sharpness cleaved through the tension in the room, both sides waiting for the other to make a move. Naruto placed the very tip of one of the blade prongs of the flame-shaped sword on the ground, lightly carving a semicircle around him, demonstrating the sharpness of the blade. Naruto, Raven and the Anbu all charged at once. Everyone charged at once. Naruto jumped up and down at the first Anbu to reach him. The opponent attempted to defend, but the Tishima threw his blade. The attacker dodged back slightly and flipped, bringing his heel down, aiming for Naruto's head. Naruto raised his arms, defending the kick. Naruto grabbed the guy's legs, thrusting him down. The blonde-haired youth drove his knee up into the man's back. Spinning on the spot and ducking below two blade, he jumped and barrel rolled, kicked out, his feet connecting with the two other attackers' faces, their masks shattering. Raven created a wall of dark energy and sent it into a group of charging Anbu, sending a mess into a nearby wall. She narrowly ducked a kunai, letting her powers invade her mind, her eyes turning into a deep blackness, her vision increased and her reactions magnified. She sent a flurry of dark bolts at her attackers, sending them sprawling to the ground. Naruto blocked an array of punches aimed at him from one of the attackers. He sensed one of them behind him, and bending back he out with the Tishima, cleaving the guy across the stomach. Using the momentum from righting himself, Naruto drove the handle of the Tishima into the other attacker's face, the man's nose shattering against the impact. Naruto jumped and span, sending a well-placed kick into the guy's breaking it. Naruto quickly crossed his fingers. Instantly 6 other Narutos puffed into existence. They charged and distracted the enemies. While Naruto gathered his chakra, sheathing his blade, he focused his power into his palm, using his other to spin it. Quickly he created a powerful orb of chakra. Naruto dived forward, diving at a group of enemies. Rasengan, he screamed, driving the ball of energy through the opponent's body. It tore straight through him, sprouting onto the walls and floor, crimson fluid splattering the blonde-haired youth's visage. Raven barely dodged another kunai. Using her powers she caught it as it passed her, sending it rocketing back, through the thrower's head and out the other side and into another opponent's head. A sharp pain wrenched through her arm and Raven was thrown to the floor. She yelped from the wound. Looking at her arm, there was a kunai sticking out of it. Naruto span and out, withdrawing the Tishima and at the same time, cleaving his opponent in half. Through the stream of he saw Raven get hit with a kunai. He stopped. The cry of pain from Raven tore through him. It happened. Raven looked at Naruto after she examined her wound. She saw him staring. An attacker was coming up behind him and she went to call out to warn him. But suddenly, Naruto's power erupted before her. Raven's senses went wild from the energy. Instantly the visage of 5 tails surrounded Naruto's body. A red aura escaped him. The attacker behind him was torn apart by an unseen force. Waves of energy erupted from the blonde-haired youth, his features contorted with rage, his eyes red in color. The ground cracked beneath his feet. "Don't you hurt her!" She heard him scream. The transparent tails around him flung out at incredibly speed, driving into the walls. They swiftly spread around the room, through every single Anbu there. As quickly as it had appeared, it vanished. Naruto collapsed onto the ground, his breath coming in gasps. Raven hurried to his side. Being careful not to put too much strain on her injured arm, she helped Naruto up. "Are you okay?" she queried. Naruto breathed in deeply, exhaling slowly, trying to gather some semblance of calm around him. "I'm sorry. I just," he stumbled over his words. "It's okay. They're all let's find Jinx." They began walking towards the double doors at the end of the room. Suddenly Naruto and Raven were knocked back into a wall, cracks impacting upon the concrete surface from the force of the blow. Naruto groaned as he and Raven struck the floor. He looked up weakly and froze. There before him stood Danzo. His cloak on the floor. It had always been believed he kept his other arm hidden because it was too damaged, but there it was, shriveled but apparently strong. His bandages were also not there, and in his right eye was something that made Naruto's turn cold with fear. It was a Mangekyo Sharingan. Realization dawned on Naruto instantly. All this time, Danzo was Madara. Naruto gazed in shock. He was about to analyze Madara's features, but he didn't have time. Suddenly the man was right in front of him. Leaning down and gazing at him. Madara reached down and grabbed Naruto, lifting the boy up effortlessly. He swung Naruto behind him, only to turn and axe kick down, sending Naruto into the ground. Anger spread through Naruto. He attacked out, his eyes in S, his hands clawed, QB energy flowing through him. He had not yet snapped into a tail form, but his power had increased. He spun on the floor and kicked out at Madara. His leg was easily caught. With obvious ease, Naruto was flung across the room into a wall. Naruto groaned, struggling to his feet. He quickly crossed his fingers. The room was suddenly filled with clones and all attacked at once. Madara was a blur in the fight. Soon smoke filled the room as clone after clone was destroyed. Naruto powered up a powerful Rasengan. He dived into the smoke as it cleared, aimed directly for Madara's back. Madara turned casually and caught the Sharingan. His palm was flat against the tearing energy, yet it did nothing to him. You need to learn your place, Naruto's opponent said sinisterly. Naruto's Rasengan was crushed into his own hand. Madara's finger wrapped around Naruto's, crushing the boy's hand with a vice-like grip. Naruto fell to his knees in pain. Three tails suddenly erupted around him. Naruto punched upwards, the fist aimed for Madara's chin. Suddenly the man wasn't there anymore. His hand and arm were wrenched behind him and a thunderous kick was driven into Naruto's side. Raven opened her eyes and her breath caught in her tea. She saw Naruto getting his arm twisted behind his back and her heart seemingly skipped several beats as a powerful kick was into her boyfriend's side. Raven went wild. Power surrounded her. She rose up, her cloak turning into tentacles, her eyes splitting into four red and angry diamonds. She reached out and gripped Madara, throwing him into a wall. The man groaned as he struck the surface, getting up easily right after. She reached for him and pulled him towards her, surrounding him in her dark cloak. She showed him his worst nightmare, or at least she tried to. There was nothing. Raven's mind went blank. There was so much power in this man, if a man is what you could call him. There was no fear, no nothing. Merely a deep hatred and a power so overwhelming she feared it. A sudden force sent her rocketing backwards. She hit the floor and skidded, looking up. Madara stood there, a smile spread across his face. You are not from here. Suddenly he was right in front of her. Rachel Roth. His hand snapped forward, gripping her end tightly. She choked and struggled feebly against him. How? She tried to ask. He leaned in, almost nose to nose with her, his eyes narrowing, the single red eye seemingly staring through her. I see all, he said matter-of-factly. He spun her and him round and through her. She collided with Naruto, who had been about to attack Madara from behind. Naruto saw as Madara gripped Raven. He forced himself to stay calm. Grabbing the Tishima, he ran silently at Madara. Jumping into the air, he readied his blade to cleave through Madara Uchiha. Suddenly he spun around and Raven was thrown into him, knocking them both back. Madara approached them both. A smug look adorned his features. You will now. Answer will your friend. I had wanted to breed her, pass on her apparently new bloodline trait. I didn't think to check her with my Sharingan. I suppose she is like this other girl. They are not from this world. Answer, I have no use of them. He stretched out his hand, and did an apparently single-handed group of hand signs. He did the same with his other hand. Placing them together, he separated them. A raw energy ball formed there, growing larger and larger. Madara rested the energy into the palm of his right hand, the bright energy lighting his face in a sinister way. Goodbye, he remarked casually. He thrust down with his hand, the ball staying in his palm. The ball was caught. Madara's eyes grew wide. A woman stood before him, her hair a dark purple and a single gem on her forehead. Her outfit was skimpy and tight to her body. Purple and silver adorned her body, fashionable and seductive at the same time. Her features betrayed a cunning evil. Madara looked into her eyes. They were a deep purple like her hair, but surrounded by a red ring, almost like a pulsing fire in her pupil. Naruto gazed up in shock. It was Blackfire. Blackfire entered the portal, a fire surrounded her, and she screamed in pain. It felt as though her whole body was being torn apart. A flash of light occurred and she fell unconscious. The sound of birds reached her ears, the soft swaying of trees. Softly and slowly she opened her eyes. She almost screamed again. She had expected to merely see trees, instead she saw everything. Energy flowed from everywhere, her limbs felt as though they weren't there, yet she was not numb. She merely felt as though her body had no weight. Everything was tinted red. The sound of a stream nearby reached her ears. Suddenly she could see the stream, or at least, where it should be. Following her strange new sight, she found the sparkling water. Looking into her own reflection, she gasped. Her eyes were on fire, or so to speak. The pupils were rimmed with a fiery and flowing red, less of an aura, more of a liquid within her flowing and pulsing. She gasped. Sitting down, she closed her eyes. Calm yourself, Commander, she told herself, focusing her mind like she had been taught on Olympus 5, a planet that she had spent a good long time studying meditation. She looked within and was taken aback. Power flowed within her, she had become so much stronger, and she was certainly more powerful than her sister Coriander. She opened her eyes, grinning at this. A few weeks passed, she stayed at the waterhole, searching with her new powers for any sign of Naruto, the one she was supposed to follow. Then she sensed it. He was here. He had been here for a while, it seemed. Blackfire didn't know how she knew that, she just did. He was above her. A grin spread across her face. She waited a few moments, and smiled as a headband of some sorts floated down and landed in the water. She waited, she sensed him turning away. After a few moments she knew he was out of sight or hearing range. She reached out her hand and suddenly the entire water burst water vapor, instantly vaporizing in a cloud of smoke. She walked forwards, stepping onto the once wet, but now dry earth where the water had been. She picked up the headband, grinning. She followed Naruto. She saw a slight sea on the blonde-haired youth's arm, probably from an attack. So he had been found. A few days ago Blackfire ventured into the village of Konoha in a disguise, and warned them of a deadly attacker in the forest. That he had blonde hair and Hayabusa armor. She made sure they sent out an array of Anbu patrols. Her master had said to test Naruto's strength. So far she had not seen him use this immense power her master had described. She hoped it would be impressive. Without revealing herself she watched as Naruto met up with his love, Raven from the Teen Ants. Raven was perhaps the only member of the Ants Blackfire had even the slightest liking of. The girl was dark, favored blue and purple colors, and she enjoyed a good dark poem. No matter, she would have to s. Blackfire watched intently, smirking as Naruto got kicked out of his own village. Blackfire donned another disguise. With her new powers she somehow knew everything about everyone. She knew the names, their personality. She just knew them. She quickly found her way to Danzo's house. Knocking on the door softly, Blackfire smiled at the bandaged man as he opened the door. Hell, my name is Kachiki. She lied. I have some news for you. May I come in? Danzo hesitated for a moment. Blackfire's hand was faster than anyone could see. It gripped his arm and crushed. Danzo gasped at the pain. Blackfire grinned at him politely. I asked if I could come in. Danzo nodded vigorously. She stepped into his home, closing the door softly. My name is Commander, and you will do as I say. There are two females traveling with Naruto Uzumaki. One of them wears a blue robe with a hood. Grab her. She has an extremely rare bloodline power. You are to find her and breed her for your own personal army. Can you do that? Danzo hesitated, glancing at his arm. It seemed nothing had been broken, but a large bruise did prominently bulge out of the skin. What do you get out of it? Danzo asked, his voice showing no fear, merely respect for power. Blackfire grabbed him and thrust him into a wall. The house shook with the impact. A large dent created into the wall where he now occupied. You don't need to know that. Just do it. She smiled. She turned and walked out of the house. Flying up, she watched with her powers how he mobilized his men, she laughing hoarsely at her own mistake. It seemed she had forgot to mention about Raven's coat going white when she was in contact with Naruto. With that in mind, the Anbu went after the only other girl, who happened to be dressed in purple. Still, she knew it would work to her advantage. Blackfire hovered over Naruto as Raven opened up the portal. Knowing where it would lead, she dashed off, trees being split in half and some uprooted with the speed and power of her flying. She stopped after mere seconds, floating above Dante's hideout. It was below the village, in the catacombs that had been long abandoned. Blackfire watched in awe as Naruto went wild, laughing manically as he tore the Anbu to pieces of a small wound on Raven's arm. He was rather clingy, she decided, and obviously overprotective. Then she watched as Danzo showed his true colors. She smiled at the fight, until the man had Naruto at his mercy. Blackfire, using her powers, suddenly appeared inside the installation, right eye on front of Danzo. She stopped his attack, feeling the energy against her palm. The power was impressive, but nothing compared to her current level. It practically tickled against her skin. Trigon had told her to remain hidden. But she found that being hidden was boring. As long as he got what he wanted, she didn't think he'd mind. Blackfire grinned at Danzo. Now. We can't have you doing anything like that, can we? She put her own power into the ball, it turned purple and spun with a red flare around it, it exploded and Danzo went back, into a wall. Blackfire walked over to him, grinning at the power she possessed and reveling in the ability to use it. Danzo got up, seemingly unharmed, she smiled at this. He rushed forward, attacking her with a powerful punch, which she caught easily. A powerful kick sent him into the roof. He fell back to the floor with a thud. Once again Danzo got up, kicking out at her. Blackfire laughed manically, dodging the kicks, she grabbed one of them and reached out. Danzo stood still, his eyes wide in shock at her strength. Blackfire smiled and gently flicked him on the nose, letting go of his leg at the same time. Danzo was sent rocketing back from the flick, the wall crumpling around him. Blackfire approached in a rather soft-footed fashion. You've served your purpose. She punched down, her hand through Danzo's body, B sprayed out. Blackfire gripped the man's heart in her hand, it from his C and crushing it easily in her palm. B cascaded out of the wound, Danzo's breathing became labored. Blackfire turned away, sending a small starbolt back at the body, blowing it to pieces. Naruto watched in horror. Blackfire was here. Not only that, she had just killed Madara in the most horrific way. He felt sick to his stomach. Blackfire approached them. A grin of raw evil adorned her face. This was not the Blackfire he had seen before, she was corrupted by her own power, a power Naruto had no idea how she came to possess. Naruto watched as Blackfire winked at him, and suddenly, she was gone, vanished in an instant. And all that remained in the underground cavern was B and darkness. Naruto was in shock, he stared at the corpse of Madara with the focus of a collector analyzing a rare doll, but this was rather involuntary. Naruto didn't want to look, but he couldn't turn away. He'd seen B before, hell, he'd drawn it. But to see a man have his heart T from his C, even an evil man such as Madara, well, that was something else. A cold hand suddenly gripped his arm and he jerked back, eyes wide and gazing in a terrified fashion at the figure beside him, but the moment recognition took place he flung himself into the girl's arms. Raven held herself to him as well, holding as tightly as she could, her body trembling, every ounce of her willpower directed towards not losing her composure. They held each other for a while, all events had come and gone seemingly at random, as though an author had written them with no discernible path to their story. Slowly and surely they managed to pull themselves to their feet. The stale air left a bad taste in their mouths and the stench of B was endemic in the atmosphere. The walls echoed every sound they made as they shuffled towards the door before them, a door right beside Madara's body. Forcing themselves not to look at the all but destroyed corpse they scurried. A sickening feeling came to Naruto's stomach as he kicked one of Madara's arms away, a remnant of his body when Blackfire and blasted the S-man. The door finally came and went, obscuring the vision of Madara, something for which Naruto and Raven were both very thankful for. Their pace eventually picked up and they forced themselves back into the usual qualities, searching for Jinx. Strange lights whirled around her and voices could be heard in the distance. The place shook and rocked and screams erupted out. This was not a dream, it was a nightmare. Hands were on her, but these were strangely comforting, wrapping around her and fondling her wrists. She was then being lifted from her position and carried by someone, an angel it seemed. She drifted back off. She awoke 3 hours earlier. The sound of a trickling stream was pleasant to her, and she felt like she could return to her peaceful slumber, but movement and a sense of something urgent seemed to weigh heavily on her mind, and this seemingly refused her the slumber she desired. Begrudgingly she opened her lids and whimpered slightly, the hot light of the sun breaking through the trees stung her eyes. Jinx, a soft and concerned voice said. She looked over and was greeted by the warm handsome face of Naruto Uzumaki. She jumped on him. A black shroud suddenly pinned her to the floor and an annoyed Raven stood over her. Jinx grinned innocently. Good to see you're feeling better, Naruto said with a soft smile. We found you unconscious in one of, he paused for a moment. Well, point is you're safe now. When you get your strength back, we've decided that we can't run away from this. Blackfire's here, Jinx. Jinx's eyes widened in shock and fear. What we gonna do? She asked, her voice shaking slightly. As I said, we can't run from her, we have to face her and beat her. We're going looking for her the moment you're strong again. He smiled. That wouldn't be such a good idea, Naruto, said an all too familiar voice. A shiver crept down Naruto's spine, his head turned slowly in disbelief and gazed at the masked man, the sunlight reflecting off of his half-golden mask and splashing an array of yellow, golds and whites onto the rocks by his feet. The very presence of this man, alive and well, filled Naruto with fear and a partial sense of wonder. Slade was in Konoha, and he was alive. Naruto stood up, his body rigid with fear. He had personally made sure that Slade breathed no more, yet here he stood. How? Was the only word he could muster in his present state of mind. I'm here to help, that's all you need to know. Slade replied. Naruto felt a wave of confusion cloud over his mind. Slade was here, to help. What do you mean help? Why would you help us? Naruto asked angrily, his temper rising. The wind whipped around them, Naruto's pale blonde hair whipped around his face. Because I know what they're planning and it's not in my best interests. Slade replied, the sentence piquing Naruto's curiosity and also his anger. Who are they? And what do you know? Naruto all but shouted, still keeping his distance between him and the supposed-to-be S-man. Slade approached Naruto, halting just short of a meter away. Blackfire is working for someone, he replied, his gaze turning slowly to Raven, whose eyes in turn went wide in realization. No, she said, trying to deny her thoughts. Rachel, are you okay? Naruto asked her, his voice full of concern. Your beloved future bride-to-be has figured out your enemy. Naruto's head turned to Slade as he said the words, looking back and forth from Raven and Slade. What is he on about? Naruto asked in a quivering voice. For some unknown reason he felt a well of fear erupting inside of him, it was becoming hard to contain. Blackfire is working for Raven's father, Trigon. Slade elaborated. What? How do you know? Naruto asked angrily, his teeth gritted. He had no actual reason to be angry, but it seemed his emotions were currently all over the place. I don't have to explain my sources to you, the fact is I know. And I know it for a fact. I also know what he's after. He's after the tailed demons of this world, including yours Naruto Uzumaki, including Kyuubi. This revelation struck home for Naruto, his head swam with thoughts and images in his mind, uncertain of many things and becoming confused on others. He felt himself swoon and he had to consciously fight to keep himself awake as the information washed over his brain. It was almost too much. Why? Naruto finally asked. Why does he want the demons? He is trapped, he can influence and empower, he can do many an insidious deed, but he is not free. Forever trapped within a dimension that he did not choose or want, trapped there by the very monks that raised your beloved girlfriend there. Slade replied, turning his head to Raven. Your power of Kyuubi's energy allowed you to absorb the body and soul and chakra energy of many people and tear open a hole in the fabric of time and space, transporting you to the world where you met the Ans. Trigon knows this, he knows the power you hold. He wants that power, but the other tailed demons aren't enough, he wants them all, and he wants you too. Naruto had been expecting riddles and things of a like, but Slade was being rather more forthcoming about this than Naruto had originally anticipated. A cheeky and scornfully demeaning comment rose to Jeichi's mind, and he couldn't help but announce it to Slade. Why would we need you? Thanks for the information and all, but I already beat you once, Ku. Or so I thought. How could you help us? Naruto asked with a slight smirk. Despite Naruto and Raven's inability to see Slade's mouth, judging from his one eye, they were vaguely aware that he was smiling behind that mask of his. Because Naruto Uzumaki. Slade started. I can't Come clean, Slade, I'll let you help us, but only if you tell us everything, how you survived, why you can't who you are. Naruto demanded, his anger subsiding slightly but his irritation barely being shifted. He detested the very presence of Slade, but he did need answers. Who I am. Slade repeated. Fine then Naruto, I shall tell you the secret of my origins, but first, you must promise to never tell Robin. Naruto felt confused and rather shocked by this demand but cautiously nodded in agreement. I am Slade. said the black and gold masked villain in a simple and casual way. Slade Wilson, originally known as Deathstroke the Terminator. The name Deathstroke the Terminator sent a chill down Naruto's spine as he listened to Slade's words. Like yourself, I am not from the Ans world, but from another world in which the Ans are much older. I was enlisted by the military as a mercenary, being on hand and ready for anything. I applied for non-enhanced treatments. The result of which is a body that is nigh indestructible. I can heal from any wound, no matter how grievous. Of course I still felt pain for a long while, though due to how long ago it was, I have become immune to such emotions. Slade's single visible eye narrowed slightly. Naruto, not being the smartest individual, only barely understood the concept that Slade was talking about. He didn't know what nano enhancements were, but he understood the healing part. I had a family in my world, a good family. But a sinister madman named Jackal came my son Joseph. In the commotion of me trying to save him, my boy's T was see his vocal cords. He was never able to speak again. At the hospital, my wife Adeline, she was furious that I endangered our son. She shot me in my right eye, which is why I wear a mask. This was, however, before the nano enhancements, and sadly the treatment of the nanites did not heal old wounds. But I was so very confident in my abilities. I don't really need my right eye, I can beat anyone. My brain is like a supercomputer. Naruto, I am a combat and tactical genius. You cannot comprehend my ability. Naruto found himself chuckling at that. If you're so great, then why is it the Ans always kick your butt? He said nonchalantly. The Ans never do, Naruto. The only one that ever bests me is Robin. And there is a reason behind that. Sadly, by an unfortunate twist of fate, the Robin you know looks very much like my own son. Slade's eyes turned away for a moment, betraying an emotion that if Naruto hadn't seen for himself, would never knew Slade was capable of, sadness. Tell me, Naruto, could you fight all out and kill a person that looked like Raven? That reminded you of her. The question seeped deep into Naruto. He had never thought of it, but as he thought then, he realized Slade was right. He didn't think he could fight all out against someone that looked like Raven. Combined, I have beaten the Ans when they all fight me many a time. It is very easy when they all attack. I'm able to concentrate on just my reactions, counterattacking their attacks, but one-on-one with Robin, and I can do nothing but look at his face, and see my son, Joseph. Joseph grew up, and he developed the ability to possess people's a useful ability, but he often used it against me, hating me for his inability to speak. Slade said in an almost bitter voice. Eventually, by a turn for the worst, my now ex-wife, having left me since what happened to my son, well, she fell seriously ill. I opted for a B transfusion. Sadly, my B gave her the ability to heal from any wound. She became insane, wanting to always able to feel pain yet never able to She begged for it in the end. I actually enlisted the Ans' help. As a mercy, I chopped my wife into tiny pieces, and Coriander, or Starfire as you know her, star-bolted the pieces, incinerating them. The most merciful death I could manage. Slade's voice had gone cold. Thought Naruto would usually describe his voice as cold. He felt an icy chill swamp over him as Slade's story obviously surfaced feelings in Slade of bitterness, darkness, and depression. That wasn't the end to my you Raven, your people made me kill my own son. Slade's eyes became pained as he glanced at Raven, whose features were now a mask of shock and disbelief. The spirits of Azurath were drawn to my son's power. They inhabited him and sent him insane. For a single brief moment before my son attempted to kill me in his madness, he begged me to kill him. My son could not heal like I could, so I complied, shoved my sword through his heart, an act that haunts me to this day. Slade gazes at Naruto. A shocked silence filled the air. In my grief I came to the Ans world you know by means I will not tell you. The Ans were young, juvenile, not even teenagers at the time, but I don't age. I amassed a wealth and contacts before they reached their teens, and waited for them to take the roles I knew they would. I wanted to make things different. Though as time passed, you'll find I had a lot of free thinking time. In time my grief turned to anger, then from anger to rage. I no longer blamed myself for everything. I blamed myself and the Ans, and I vowed I would destroy them. However, by the time this revelation and ideal had sunk and rooted itself within me, the Ans were a feared fighting force for good already, and so began my complaint against them. Slade paused for a while. Shall I continue and describe every day up to this point for you, Or are you satisfied with that? Slade said in a slightly snappy way. That'll do. It explains a lot. And fine, you can help us. Chapter finished. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.